live stream to the Uncom channel.
Oh, sweet.
So let's see if that works. Just hit the setting up your meeting for YouTube Live. And I will.
Boom. Now live on the YouTubes.
Still loading, but. Yeah, no, we're on.
Perfect, man. It feels good to have an audience today. I should have prepared for this.
We're always prepared, man. All right. So we want to discuss today like friction and on-ramps, challenges in terms of getting into cryptos, NFTs. That is definitely one of the biggest barriers for people looking at it. I think everybody's at least thought about whether they should buy cryptos or not. I know my parents have. I know, most people our age either own them or they've seriously considered owning them. Was there a friction barrier for you in terms of getting started when you first bought?
Yeah, so I think this is very ripe on the mind because I was helping a buddy with an interview with one of the big crypto companies, and as part of that, we were just kind of like jamming on him going through the process, like buying an NFT, what the experience was like, and anytime you go through a product, like you want that to be as frictionless as possible to keep people coming back. And the funny thing we were just like remarking about was for how actively we were both trying to spend money, how hard it was to actually go through the process of acquiring an NFT. And I think it's a good thing for a lot of people because if you're not privy to some of these challenges, you were either going to like hit them and say like, crypto is a bunch of BS, like it's not for me. And like, that's going to be your viewpoint for probably the next couple of years. Cause I think anytime a new technology comes through, there are people who are not early adopters that go through the funnel. They get burned early and then they just like dismiss it until it becomes like very mainstream. So I think a good point today would be to like start to look out for some of those things. And I think for me, we can kind of go like not in order. Number one is if you're just buying on a site and you don't have previous research, it's really hard to know what to look for and what you're getting. So like I've been very like unabashed about this. I'm super big on it, like util NFTs. Call me a util maxi, call me whatever you want. Like I'm not really here for the art because I just don't understand as much. But I think util NFTs are so cool. If you go to a lot of the big sites on like OpenSea for a util NFT, it's really hard to understand like what is the utility behind it. And you have to do a fair bit of digging into the project itself off platform to go back on platform to buy it. So it's one of the first things that like, if you don't know what you're getting into, it's not as easy as just going on to a marketplace saying like, I want an NFT. I think you have to do a fair bit of research as a consumer before you get to the point where you're buying. I mean, it was your experience anywhere like that, or is it just me?
So my first experiences with NFTs were through Theta Drop, and I didn't really know too much about what NFTs were. But the difference was on Theta Drop, the gas is like less than $1. So usually you're paying like 5 cents. And so they had NFTs that were like $5 and $10 and $50. And so it's like a much less aggressive entry in terms of the finances. And then the other cool thing is like it's a much more curated experience. Like on OpenSea, there's a lot of like fake projects. So not only are there crap projects, but then you can see like duplicates. So I wanted to buy the NFT of a popular YouTuber, JRNY Journey. Is it in it like one of the guys who's done well in NFTs? I think he bought 50 Bored Apes early on.
Wow.
And so he's been in early on a lot of things. He's been big in the crypto space and YouTube for a long time, and seems to be one of the more honest kind of guys that a lot of the YouTubers I don't really trust too much. And I don't know too much about him either, but to be honest, like I wanted to have that experience of owning a kind of high ticket utility NFT. And I knew he knows NFTs really well. His community knows NFTs. So he's going to do things like he's going to be ahead of the wave. And that's what I wanted to experience because I'm, thinking about how I'm going to do it for myself and how I can give a great experience, customer experience. I figure his audience is probably a year or two ahead of mine in terms of knowledge. But they have like fake ones that look exactly the same on OpenSea. So you could easily go and spend like almost the same amount of money. Like they're always cheaper, the fake ones. So you think you're getting a good deal and then you got nothing. So it's tough. I think that the NFT space, I think, is super aggressive. I wouldn't touch a project that didn't come with a recommendation from someone who's already made hundreds of thousands of dollars in NFTs, or it's the project of a friend. Like the thing with Theta Drop, and I'll maybe share a show here. It's a curated marketplace, so everything that's on there is vetted, and it looks more like a normal store kind of experience. You can buy with fiat in this, so you can buy directly from your card. It's much more of a consumer experience. So Theta isn't so much targeting hardcore NFT, fans and people who've been in crypto for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
It's targeting the next wave, the people who haven't, they're going to buy their first NFT here, and they maybe don't even hold any cryptocurrencies yet. So it's like literally like click and buy. So it's a really simple process. Yeah,
that's super cool, because I haven't played around with Theta Drop too much, but I think like you're hitting on a really big one here. So I think when I break down some of the stuff you talked about as to like the core problems you're going to face as a user when you go through the funnel, number one is like research. It's understanding the project that you're getting into. And like you said, I think that like it's best to know someone, have some sort of like a first or secondary connection to that, or to have like really done your research. Number two, and we can kind of deep dive on all of these, like it'd be the fraud. So like the fraud and the gas fees, I think, are the scariest things for a lot of people. Because my buddy was like, he up some of the projects called Crypto Baristas. Super cool project to basically build out a coffee shop in New York, and they're offering you like as a util, like percent royalties, like you go to the coffee shop, like membership with other members, and it's really geared towards like coffee lovers, art lovers, and entrepreneurship. Big on 2 out of 3 of those things, the coffee and the entrepreneurship. So it's got that community play, it's got the revenue play, it's got the util play. And then he was like, okay, cool, we'll buy this, and he sent me the link on OpenSea. And if you looked at the ones on OpenSea, like 80% of them, like a lot of them are minted in like the past 2 weeks. And then if you looked at the Crypto Baristas website, all of them were linked to the marketplace Rarible instead. And if you looked at OpenSea, it was like a 0.1 ETH, so roughly $100 token. And if you looked on Rarible, you're looking at like 1.1 to like 1.5 ETH, which is significantly more for the actual thing. And I think it's such a good call out you had, because like if you aren't careful and don't understand the difference between a rare and a fake, you are going to get duped. And I think a lot of the stuff on the OpenSea platform, they just came out with stuff like they were having a problem with fraudulent tokens. So like when you look at that, is it more important for you to use the marketplace that's vetted like Theta Drop, or how do you kind of research and understand like what's a real and what's a fake?
Yeah, there were instructions on the Journey one, so I could find that they were real and they had the hash numbers, and I was able to see that. But I was interested in another one that was a crypto island, Satoshi Island. I think Satoshi Island is the one in Vanuatu, and I was looking at trying to buy one of their NFTs. I think they're in the sort of 0.1 ETH or something, and it's sort of working towards timeshare or something in this Vanuatu thing. But I'm excited about those types of projects. So I put money towards things. I'm voting basically that more of these kinds of projects exist in the world. So if I help the early ones, then more of them will exist.
Yeah.
But I went on OpenSea and I couldn't find it. And then they said you have to go to Discord to get help. And they basically refused to help in the Telegram that they have set up. And I just haven't gone back to it since then. It's like those little friction points, as you say, it can be big. And I just can't see how OpenSea isn't going to get disrupted as well. It's like it's too much money and too much stuff going on for technology that's really bad or missing key points. Like how hard is it to verify and put a verified thing next to the project that's legit? Yeah. And to take down stuff that's copies. Like just look and see if every time a copy goes up, there's millions and millions, like probably, there's billions of dollars going through these exchanges. So I think and it's probably potentially going to happen with other chains. I think Ethereum, it's just ridiculous. Like a lot of the application for NFTs will be in micro projects, and Ethereum counts itself out by the gas fees. So there are projects that are going on Solana and Polygon and other protocols, and Theta is set up Theta, I just heard about from a new perspective. I was listening to Richard Hart from Hex, and he was talking about how big an industry illegal streaming and downloads are. So getting stuff off Netflix for free from other places. And he was saying like it's absolutely huge industry. Theta is actually the solution to that, where everything's encrypted and you can't get pirate stuff. It's potentially like gonna change the game with that. And I didn't consider before that could be a big part of the play of Theta, is like that with copyright protection. And they've partnered up with the file sharing. You know how you have it's an example of a big file sharing. I haven't used one for a while, but you know when you want to transfer like a big file, there's sort of a new one on the blockchain that is partnering with Theta for that. And I was thinking about like that. So the idea with those would be like when you buy and download a PDF, it could be encrypted and locked and made like, so it's very difficult for sharing of that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's another kind of use case. But coming back to the point, like the curated sites are probably a good place to start. The thing is that if you don't really they don't have as many projects, and if the project isn't good, then it can be safe and legitimately exactly what it says it is, but that doesn't mean it's not going to lose you money, you know? So I think most of what's going on Theta Drop, honestly, at the moment, I'm not that excited about. I don't know where it's going. It doesn't look interesting to me. Now that could just be my lack of education. But yeah, it doesn't help that it's vetted if it's not good. And I can't, I'm not smart enough to know where a lot of these are going, because they don't look good to me, but I may not be in the target as well, you know?
Yeah. Before you jump into like the PDF thing is really interesting, because we had talked about, I mean, the big point of this is like, what is the application to coaches? And if you can start to encrypt those PDFs and those files that you're sending people for programs, that's a really big one, that it's inexpensive. You want to make sure your stuff stays safe, and we're getting royalties on any transfer of your own material. So I don't know exactly how to set the royalties up, but I think that's it's stuff like that, to where you want to look at what is the capacity of this chain, how are they thinking about doing things, and then how can I just slot that in with stuff that we're already doing now. That's kind of like the level 0 of things, is like, rather than saying like this is going to disrupt the brand new way to do things, you can just say, okay, like what am I doing now? What would be a better way to do that? And what technology exists out there to slot in to ensure that I'm either protected, can get things faster, can add more value with that. But I think you're spot on that. So I think OpenSea is an interesting one for me, to where they were the first mover. And I think like there's a lot of first mover advantage with that. I think they're bearing a lot of the problems that you see with a new technology, fraud being a big one. The fact that like it's a large marketplace right now that technically caters to everyone, but it's very heavy on the Ethereum blockchain, to which I think, just based on the way Ethereum is set up, lends itself to higher priced, more expensive stuff, which also lends itself to higher gas fees, which we'll kind of like jump into a second. And I think that I kind of see this going as, you're not going to have I think it'd be very hard to have like the Amazon for everything. Maybe later on down the game, to where you have a marketplace that does everything well. But I think that like, as you see more marketplaces pop up that, one, offer a really good user experience, but two, are able to get the right projects and artists on there. Because without them, it really is that supply and demand game of like, you need supply to be able to generate demand. So like, just like we did at Uber, like you really have to stock up on drivers to ensure that like when you open your app, oh yeah, like it's a 5-minute wait time, it's a cheap ride. If somebody opens their app, for the Uber example, and you had one driver for the entire city, or like the entire country of Montenegro, and you're like, okay, cool, I can wait 2 hours, or like, and it's going to be hundreds of dollars, or I can just go do my thing. It's not going to work. So I think that marketplaces face an interesting challenge of like, they're going to have to track the right supply, but they're also going to have to keep prices low enough for their demographic. Once it's a bigger thing, that you attract kind of like the every buyer, or people are just going to go and say like, OpenSea wants to be super expensive. Like they're going to be like the quote unquote like Christie's of the art world. I think that's a direct comparison to where like, this is where you buy expensive stuff. And then you can go buy art from other places that's less expensive. So I think you may see sub-segmenting there. It's just kind of curious in like how it goes on and like how it moves.
Yeah, but it's like buying Louis Vuitton and at the local supermarket.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's expensive, but it's like a crappy experience, and there's junk all over the floor, and that's kind of what OpenSea seems like to me. So
Yeah.
that's why I just because I've had that experience a lot with Theta Drop, where it is a nice experience. There's fiat on ramp. It looks good. It feels good. It's simple. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have fear about those things. There's no cross bridge compatibility yet though. So like if it's on Theta, it stays on Theta. But that they say is coming in the next few months, which I think will make it simpler as well. It's going to be really, intriguing to see who takes over this. When, as I said, like I've been listening to Richard Hart, he says that we haven't reached all the money has to go out of NFTs before it's a good time to buy again. Like so, he's expecting most of the NFTs to go to zero, and that market just to really like get hit super hard as kind of like the ICO bubble of 2017. Like he's saying that's what NFTs are now. So most of them are going to get smashed. People are going to have these things that they paid $500,000 for that nobody wants anymore. And that's his prediction for the space, which he had Bitcoin at $30. He was mining Bitcoin when it was way back in the day, and still holds that, and got in early on Ethereum, and now has his own coin which has done like a million X, so 1,000,000% increase, not million X, but so he knows the space very, very deeply. Like he's developed his own stuff. He's worked with his team of developers. That's his take on the NFT space. So it's worth considering that it's not just the old people that are saying NFTs are junk. Like there are a lot of smart people saying they're junk as well. So it's definitely worth thinking about what you're going into. If you buy my NFT, if you buy Gary V's NFT, that person is still going to exist. Like we're still going to exist. We're still going to be working towards the people that, supporting the people that supported us.
Yeah.
But if it's some anonymous thing and the market tanks, good luck. Like they don't care. They got their money. They don't know. You don't know who they are. It's over. Yeah.
I mean, I think that speaks perfectly to your investment thesis of like only buy NFTs from people because at least then like you can measure the amount of personal accountability that goes into the project. Because we've talked about this on a previous segment, initial series that kicked off the Crypto and Coaching podcast is really betting on the founder. When you look at a project, and I'll recap that, like you really want to make sure that like that person has the vision, they have the integrity, and they have the execution, and they've demonstrated all three of those in some capacity, and it's not like a full pass. Some people based on where they're at are going to be stronger in like one place than the other, but you really want to make sure they can fill into those shoes, because if not, and you're just betting on like a cool project, it's essentially like just throwing money at a pitch deck or a white paper. I'll be the first one to tell you, as somebody who like did a lot of this stuff for Uber, it is really easy to write a strategic PRD or white paper on a brand new feature, something that's going to revolutionize the world, something that's going to like make us a ton of money. It's very easy for me to just sit down in front of my laptop, grab a cup of coffee, pen that out over the course of like a couple hours, and then a week, and edit it. It's really hard to take that white paper and then execute it on it in like real world terms, where like everyone else has a say, the market has a say, and you're taking an idea and putting them to thought. It's why a lot of people aren't really good entrepreneurs and not rich, because it's really easy to have that idea. Everyone's got the buddy at the bar, be like, yeah, I thought of that like years ago. Like you may have thought about it, you may have like great ideas, but until you can like turn those ideas into reality and manifest them fully, like they're not really worth a lot. And I think what you're seeing right now, and I do agree that like the floor is like going to drop. We need an intro and outro. Say, this is not financial advice from Keegan nor myself. Please do your research. Please like figure your own stuff out. We'll get official about this. But if you aren't smart about this and you're just kind of throwing money at a space that's moving in the right direction, like you are likely going to lose your ass. But if you follow kind of Keegan's advice and like know the person doing it at least, or build a relationship with that person. If you think a project's cool, reach out, talk to them, pick their brain, see what's up. Then I think you have more confidence that like, even if the market goes down, Keegan, like when he releases Uncom 88, like he's still going to be here. He's still going to be trying to push that value, and he's still going to be oriented towards the market. So it really is exactly what you said, like do your research on the market, the project, with the founder itself, and make sure like those three things are three check boxes before you go and put a ton of money towards something that like looks cool on paper, but could easily be worth zero in a couple months.
Getting back to the friction of starting, it's the challenge of actually holding either Ethereum or, if you're going onto the Theta network, you need to hold T-Fuel. That has its own barrier to entry and challenge in itself as well. I think a lot of people don't buy because they don't know how to get their hands on the cryptos, and it's just feels a bit intimidating. What's your experience with, when you first kind of got in, or if you had coins that you've struggled to get your hands on?
Yeah, so it really depends on how you want to go about it. So like getting Ethereum or Bitcoin or another coin, I've always gone through Coinbase. Just because like to me they have the best security, they have the best UI. I'm even kind of comfortable leaving stuff on there for periods of time rather than transferring it to a wallet. And from a wallet perspective, I think MetaMask has probably been the easiest of use in being able to store. So like I haven't had a ton of problems with that. It's just kind of researching both of those and then getting things set up. I actually found, so like we did a ton of identity verification at Uber. I actually found Coinbase's identity verification and onboarding process fairly good. I think they're the more mature company in the space. I think their user experience is pretty good as far as like buying coins. It just becomes like taking those coins, putting them in a wallet, connecting your wallet to somewhere else and doing that. But I think like for me, Coinbase and MetaMask seem to have been like the good spots for that. How about yourself?
Yeah, it was different companies in Australia. There's a sort of Australia-friendly one that a lot of people use, CoinSpot, and that was relatively easy. It is a little bit intimidating to do the KYC and who am I sending my information to. But it's the same thing when you open a bank account, and it's less aggressive than what a lot of banks are. In my experience with banks over the last few years, you're traveling and setting things up, so it's worth overcoming. I would suggest like if you like people who are looking at it, and for myself when I started, if you're working with money that is insignificant to you to begin with, and you just test things out, and even though it's costing you a little bit to test things out, like that is probably what's really valuable. Just spending some time on moving money into MetaMask and knowing how all the components work. But my experience is that the best way to learn it is by actually doing it with an amount of money that it's not super stressful if you do happen to do something wrong. Trying to learn it without doing it, I think, is really, really difficult. That's same as with anything. Like it's difficult to teach someone a power clean or a snatch without having the bar in their hands. It's the same kind of deal, I think, for looking at this space. And the reality is that people do get rich quick. Like they say there's no get rich quick, but I have friends who got rich really quick. Like they put money into Bitcoin, they forgot about it, they came back and they were millionaires, and it is happening. So it's made more millionaires and transformed more lives. Like it is the biggest opportunity that has ever existed in terms of wealth creation. So it's, you can't say that it's not. If you look at the numbers, if you look at what Bitcoin's done, almost everybody heard about Bitcoin by 2014, 15, and anybody could have made a huge return. The challenge is that a lot of the stuff that's coming up now is not going to last. It's going to go to zero. So, and doing your own research doesn't necessarily work if you have no idea about the technical details of things. So challenge is to try and find people who don't seem like scammers, and that's, don't seem like they have your interests against you, which I think my take on most of the YouTube guys is I don't trust them. Like the big ones, I think they're mostly batting for Binance. They're batting for the exchanges and trading, and that's a kind of a corrupt, nasty industry in my eyes. So the challenge is to take it on for yourself of directing your attention towards finding people who you really resonate with and who seem to know what they're talking about. And that's not necessarily, that's not going to be us. We're just guys who are feeding our way, winding our way through the space and being honest about the journey. So but it's too much to ignore in my opinion.
100%. So I think before I jump today, you hit on really two pressure points there, and it goes back to the person. So number one, like when you evaluate people, always assume that person is going to act in their own self-interest. This goes for a YouTuber, this goes for a personal project, this goes for your mother, father, etc. Number two, listen to a really good podcast with Lex Friedman and Thomas Tull. Thomas Tull spun up and produced a ton of really cool movies. He's toured with the Rolling Stones, like very smart guy. But he was talking about like his evaluation of people and kind of like who to listen to and what frameworks to listen to. Yep. And he was talking about an interview or an afternoon he spent with Warren Buffett. And he was like, some people you're around them and you realize like, even though they're very successful, like your friends who were millionaires, like it was like, oh, you were in the right time at the right place and like good things happened. Which like, to no fault of those people, like they position themselves, or maybe they didn't, but you can look at other successful people and say, like, you're thinking about things critically. You put yourself time and time again in successful positions. Like those are the people you want to look out for. You're not looking for the guy who randomly invested in Bitcoin in like 2014 or 2009, woke up, he was like a multimillionaire, and then starts a crypto channel on investing. Like he did nothing to, like, there was no strategic position behind that other than forgetting about it and holding it. So those are my two things before I hop. Always assume that other people are going to back in their self-interest, and then look for people who have repeated success or are thinking about things critically to do so. But yeah, until next week.
Strong advice. I appreciate that. I'm going to stay on and answer a couple of the questions. But look forward to the next one. Thanks,
Sounds
Zach.
good. Take care,
See you, brother. So we got a question there. Thoughts on XRP? My understanding, and as we've said, like neither of us are super deep into crypto experts, the sole source of reason. I'm going to bring again to Andrew Hart. What's his name? Richard Hart. I saw him answer the question about what do you think about XRP the other day, and he gave an answer which, like a lot of his answers, kind of struck me between the eyes of like, oh, I haven't thought about it from that perspective. What he said, Mr. ATG Andrew, he said, no big companies are going to pump your bags. So the play with XRP, from my understanding, is that people are betting on the banks pumping XRP and making billionaires out of XRP holders. There's a lot of different stories about XRP with like conspiracy type stories on both sides, and where it actually fits in the picture. And his thing was, the big guns are not going to pump your bags. Facebook is not going to pump your bags. So, but Facebook are not going to make people rich by buying in massively to Bitcoin or to Ethereum. What Facebook are going to do is they're going to do Libra. They're going to work out their own way, and they're going to pump their own bags. They're not going to make everyday people wealthy. And he's stated like what they do is they build software and they appropriate ideas into new projects. I forget exactly the language he used for it, but he's like, Amazon, that's all they do. So why would they not do that with crypto? If they were going to use crypto, then they're not going to do something that doesn't directly benefit them, or that benefits, the little guy. So that perspective made a fair bit of sense to me. I don't know what your thoughts are on it. It's cool to hear different perspectives. I'm going to, the topic for today was like the friction of getting started and the friction of NFTs. It's that friction that stops us from doing great things in all areas of life. It's very difficult to take on, and we're all facing some degree of overwhelm where we don't want to take on that next thing. This is my first time streaming to YouTube, and there was friction with that of like, oh, how do I do it? Is it going to work? And I had to mess around with a few things. I still can't do it on my other channel, as far as I know. I'm commenting from my own other channel, I just realized. So I'm streaming to Keegan Uncommon Success, and then I commented from the ATG Mentor. So the ATG Mentor is a bigger channel, but it speaks about strength training. So this is not appropriate for that channel. But that friction is, the difference between being able to live life on your own terms and having to work for someone else. Like if you're not willing to go through the friction of building your own brand, building your website, making your own YouTube channel, making your own videos, then you have to work for someone else who's going to do the work. And then they're going to put you to work and put your consciousness to work for them. And you're going to get a small fraction of that. So there is friction. There is a challenge to learn, where do I want to put my money? Everything's on the line. People are getting rich quick. There are huge opportunities to find transformative, life-changing wealth. There are also people who are, betting everything on red and it comes up black and it's all over. So you have to be, being smart. The biggest thing is to, if you can, as I said, like find people who you resonate with. I think that is the biggest tip I would have for people who don't have 5 years of experience. Like you can't get 5 years of experience in less than 5 years. If you don't have 5 years of experience in crypto, then you don't have 5 years of experience in crypto. And it's going to be difficult to be ahead of the market, to be the guy who predicts what's coming next. If you can see someone's got a serious track record and they've been doing it for a long time and they understand things technically and they're transparent about what their goals are, then to me, that makes sense. So I've found two people who fit in those categories, and that's, they help me to focus my attention, and then I learn as much as I can, knowing that it's not my full-time thing, but it doesn't make sense to me to buy land, to buy real estate, to hold money in cash, to be in the stock market in the current situation. When I look at the way the world is set up right now, those things don't really make sense to me. And from an ethical point of view, we need real money. Like, I don't see a great future for the world without us having real money. So something that is not able to be printed by government, basically, something that we can really hold on to value, to be able to store wealth and to be able to transfer between us. The fiat currencies aren't terrible for transactions, but they're not good for storage, and it's not really fair that we have to work hard to buy stuff, and then at the other end, someone's just got their hand in the till, and they don't have to work for what they spend. So it's a big ideological challenge at this time as well. What are we, what's going to be money? And you place your bets on that, and you go what makes sense to you. Yeah. So if you're looking at, Andrew's talking about wanting to invest and then forget about it and come back later. That's really my strategy as well. Like, find some good things that make sense, invest, and then leave that, forget about it. If it goes to zero, I made a bad call, but I'm not going to chase, this thing's hot, I'm going to jump on that. This thing's hot, I'm going to jump on that. Because what happens when you do that, and I did a little bit of that when I first started, you jump on something when it's doing really well, and then it dies down, and then something else does really well. So you sell from here and you buy here, and then that does that, and you just keep selling high and buying, selling low and buying high, which is the opposite of what you want to do. And everyone thinks they're going to do the opposite. But if you're listening to the YouTube hype and you don't really know what you're doing, very, very difficult game, in my experience, to make those calls, and you won't know until you're doing it. Investor psychology seems simple. People think, I'll start learning about investing once I've got a ton of money, but no, you won't. Like, you can start now. Anyone can start now. and you will learn about yourself. You will learn about decision making and influence, and how well you deal with price going down, how well you deal with price going up. I don't think you can know what you like until you're in the game. If you're in the game for a lot, then congratulations, because most people don't have a lot to be able to play with. So it shows you've had some success. You've been able to delay gratification. You haven't spent everything that you've made, put it all back into consumer items, holidays, and fancy cars and fancy clothes. Most people don't have that discipline. A lot of people don't have that discipline. We're programmed not to have that discipline. So one of the things that my mentor kind of encouraged is if you're only investing with what you would have potentially spent anyway, if it's money that you would have spent at restaurants, if it's money that you would have spent on clothes, then you really have nothing to fear, because if it would have gone to zero anyway, you don't expect return when you buy a pair of shoes. You don't expect return when you take a holiday. So you can't really lose. If it doesn't go well, then you haven't really changed your position too much. You're back where everybody else is, and you have the habit. So it's money that you would have wasted anyway. So if you win, then it's great. And if you lose, then you would have lost anyway with it. But once you have that habit of consistently moving in a direction that makes sense to you, then eventually you're going to keep learning, and eventually there's a good chance that something you do is going to be smart, especially if you can try and find multimillionaires, billionaires that have made good tips. And for me, I always look for a contrary perspective. If someone's kind of saying the same thing as the newspaper or the mainstream perspective, then I don't trust it, basically. So it's up to each of us to find our path with that. In terms of like buying it, leaving it, coming back, if you can continue to do that, then chances are you're going to have a lot of stuff that you've bought and left and you can go back to. If you have a lot of stuff that you've bought and left and can go back to, then you'll always have choice. That's what money buys you. Money buys you choice. If you don't buy things that retain some value, then you have less choice, especially when challenging things come up in the world. Maybe it's going to become more difficult to travel. Maybe it's going to become more difficult for some people to work. A lot of people have experienced that in the recent past. The more money you have, the more choices you're likely to have. So set it and forget it. That's what I'm excited about. And I'll probably do a whole different video talking about Hex. Maybe I'll find someone from that community that I can discuss it with. But there's a lot there. When you listen to Richard and you look at why he's doing what he's doing with his Bitcoin, initially it was called Bitcoin Hex. So his goal was to take Bitcoin onto the Ethereum chain and do Bitcoin better than Bitcoin, make it cheaper to buy, and then take away some of the risk, take away the loss with the mining. And it was worth a fraction of a cent, and it got up to 50 cents. And so people made millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions. Some of them already knew what he was up to. But that coin is set up to give you strong rewards on staking. So it's really set up for that set and forget type person, which is who the future of cryptocurrencies probably are. It's probably people who are not wanting to be, researching every project every day, but they want to work in other areas. They want to build businesses, do their job, spend time with their family. They don't want to be obsessed with crypto, but they want to know that something is set up well, that has their best interests at heart and allows them to participate in this financial revolution. And, the biggest transfer of wealth, the biggest wealth opportunity the world's ever seen. You don't want to be on the sideline of that, but you don't also want to give your life to it. Max is saying, bought Luna at $5, forgot about it, came back and it was $100. That's a nice surprise. Yeah. I found the other day I had free Uniswap. So they gave away 400 tokens to anyone who was on Uniswap in the early days. And I was kind of obsessed with DeFi when it was like a $4 billion market cap. I was just getting into crypto more seriously. I'd had some Cardano for a year or so at that point. But I was getting right into the DeFi, and I could see this is going to be big. Like, started buying random stuff, had no idea really what I was doing before I found my first sort of big influence mentor in this space. Because I used uni, they gave those 400, just anyone who used it before a certain date, they airdropped the tokens. So there literally is free money. Those tokens, I think, have been up to $100 at one stage. So that would have been $40,000, I believe, at one stage. I think I messed up because you have to pay the gas to get the free tokens. So you still have to pay like the fee of the network minting them for you. You have to pay a computer to give them to you, basically, to create them and to give them to you. And so I think I messed up in paying the fee. So it took like months. And that's how it works. If you don't pay, it's just really, really slow. But eventually you get it. So I'm pretty sure I got them like months after I pressed like the free minting. Then when I looked at it, like I just had $4,000 that popped up. What happened with Bitcoin Hex, for the first year, it was free to Bitcoin holders. So he wanted to do like with Bitcoin Cash and these other forks where they were free to the Bitcoin holders. So he did that. And I think there was like $1 billion or something, 2 billion, I don't know, something like that, of Bitcoin holders like took their free Hex. And yeah, depending on how much Bitcoin you have, like some of those guys got like free tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars free, because that's how he got his token off the ground, to have an interest in it. There was a lot of negative stuff that came with him doing that as well, but there literally is a ton of free money in crypto, but it's not simple. It's not simple to be a part of. So I appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you. My goal, dream, ambition is to have 88 friends who find their way to 8-figure wealth, people who don't have 7-figure wealth at the moment, people who just kind of getting started like I was a couple of years ago. I'd been working for a long time, but I had $600,000 of debt. And now the goal is to help other people to experience what I've experienced, where you get to have more choice. You might not choose to do the things that I've done when you have that choice, but I want friends who have that choice. So that's why I'm having this conversation. And I do think that it's one of the most, it's probably the most important political decision that we make is, what is money? What are we going to do with the resources that we have? We can give it all back to the big corporations. We can, hide it under the pillow. We can buy precious metals. We can buy property. We've all got choices, opportunities, what we do with that. And anyone can start in this space. That's a good thing about cryptos, is much lower barrier of entry than with things like managed funds and a lot of those tools. Now, some of it's more accessible now, I guess, with the different apps and things. When I wanted to start with that stuff, there was big barriers to entry with fees. And if you didn't have a lot of money, then you kind of couldn't do it because you were going to get smashed with the fees. But we each have to make this decision. If we can find our way as humanity to real money, I think the future is bright. If we can't, then I'm deeply concerned. And it seems as though it's going to play out in the next sort of 5 or 10 years, maybe in the next year or two, that there's going to be some significant change with what is money and how it all works. So that's why I'm having this conversation. I'd love for some of my friends to do really well through this. So I'm going to be doing my best. And it's up to each of us to learn and connect and mastermind. And it's not easy, but it is worth it. 5 years ago, I would have said it's not worth your time and just focus on your business, focus on your health. But my position changed when I experienced having a mortgage, having other bills, and not knowing how I was going to pay them. And I finally got it. The challenge and the sensation that most people live most of their lives through. Like, a lot of people have lived for a long time with that feeling. So I think we can do something about it. I know we can do something about it. If I can do it, a lot of people can. And yeah, that's the purpose of this conversation. So if you would like to get more involved, I will drop the link to the Telegram group where we mastermind on this sort of stuff. And you'll get links to more resources, more information from the things that I'm learning from. And my goal is to have more informed friends. The more educated and informed the people around me are, the better conversations we can have and the better decisions we're going to make collectively. So I didn't have any friends that were interested in this stuff for the large majority of my life. And now I have quite a few friends that are in this space. Some of them work in venture capital and crypto, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing to have friends that are interested in basically where power lies in society, and yeah, maintaining the ability to choose. That's what it's all about. If we give up money, then we're in trouble. The universal basic income type scenario is not one that plays out well in my mind. So thanks so much for joining me, and look forward to the next chapter.